Hi, I want to talk for a little bit about story moment and about anchoring the reader in the experience of your main protagonist. I do go on about story moment a lot, and what I mean by it is that the reader is with the protagonist, experiencing the main action of the story. And that's a kind of a flow of events that begins at the beginning of the chapter and through to the end. And if you think of it as a flow, it's easy to see what will interrupt the flow. And I mean, everybody's kind of familiar with this. If you go too much into a character's head and spend more than a couple of lines on introspection, that messes with the flow, as does too much description or too much thinking about the past. Anything actually that takes you out of being directly involved in the action of the experience that your protagonist is going through is a potential boulder that stops the narrative flow. Now, obviously, in telling a story, you need to have introspection and information and some kind of, you occasionally need to know something about the past, and you definitely need description. But it's about finding the balance so that the balance is such that we are always in the moment, moving forward in the story. That means that we always know who the person is that we're looking at, who we're with, if you like, where we are, and what's going on. Now, in first person, it's actually quite easy. There's so many different ways you can do first person, but there's a form of first person which is almost too close to the person's head, when you're almost in total introspection, when we actually don't know where we are, and we don't know who the person is that we are with, and we don't know what's going on, because what we're seeing is the reaction and not the experience that's precipitated that reaction. So you can be really beautifully written and you can have fabulous description of something, but if we don't actually understand what's going on, we're kind of floating around, and even though we are with the person, the protagonist in the moment, what we're not getting is kind of action and flow that's allowing us to move through the action of the chapter. And that, in a way, is another way in which we can fail to connect with the protagonist. So I think what's a good idea to do is, even if you're doing quite an intimate first-person viewpoint, you convey to the reader where the protagonist is, what is going on, as well as how they're feeling about it, in such a way that we can therefore identify with the feelings while understanding what it is that has happened. And it's really quite subtle. It's often just a question of changing a few words to actually anchor the protagonist in real time and space, which allows us to follow the story much more clearly. I hope that helps.